I used to believe business trips were just about work. Until I saw him, in the hotel lobby, with eyes that made it impossible to look away. My name is Laura. I'm 30 years old, living in New York, and I work as a project manager at Whitestone Financial Group. My days revolve around contracts, budget sheets, and endless reports. But the one thing I could never schedule was emotion. I met him on a business trip to Boston, a city of steel bridges and bitter coffee. The trip was supposed to be 3 days of back-to-back meetings. But all of that became irrelevant the moment I walked into the Hilton Hotel at 7 p.m. He was there. No fanfare, no spotlight, just him, in a black suit with eyes that cut through the noise. His name was Thomas, a partner from Lee & Brooks. I had seen his name in dozens of emails, but in person, he was something else entirely. My heartbeat skipped. A flutter of excitement. A sliver of fear. That night, we had dinner with the other executives. I sat 2 seats away from him, but it felt like we were side by side. His gaze never left me. After dinner, when everyone was ready to part ways at the hotel bar, I hesitated. Then he leaned closer and asked, "Laura, are you still awake?" A simple question, but it felt like a secret code unlocking another dimension. We walked through the cold night air. Boston was brisk, and his voice was deep and comforting. He spoke of failures, of things never written in his resume. I laughed, then I went quiet. Because I understood. When he touched my hand, I should have pulled away. But I didn't. Because my heart didn't let me. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to lose the feeling of truly being alive. Just this once. From that moment on, business trips would never be just about business. Every trip would be a secret affair. I thought it was just one special night. But then came a text at 2 a.m., and everything changed. After that night in Boston, I returned to New York feeling torn. My heart was pounding with something dangerous, while my mind screamed, "Laura, don't let this sweep you away." But how could logic win over something so intoxicating? I didn't message Thomas. I waited. 10 days later, at 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. A short text appeared. "San Francisco, next Monday, are you going?" I stared at the screen like it was a map to some forbidden maze. The trip was real, our office had emailed the meeting schedule a week ago. But the way he asked, it wasn't businesslike. It was intimate. I lost sleep for 3 nights. Then I said yes. San Francisco greeted me with mist and a nervous churn in my stomach. I spotted him in the hotel ballroom at the Marriott. That same look in his eyes, like he could read my thoughts, like time had never passed. We said little during the meeting. But every time I glanced down to take notes, I could feel his gaze. I wasn't sure if anyone else noticed. I only knew. I was playing with fire. That night, while others went out for Chinese food, I claimed I was too tired. And the moment I closed my door, my phone lit up. "Room 1806, if you want to talk." I stood outside his room, hand trembling. I knew, if I walked in, every boundary would disappear. But I didn't walk away. He opened the door. Warm amber light spilled into the hallway, a faint cologne in the air. He stood there, silent, watching. I stepped inside. Every step was another heartbeat hammering louder. Then he spoke. "I don't know if this is right, but I know one thing, I want you." I knew this would shatter every rule I had lived by. But I also knew, I had never felt more alive. I thought we were careful. But on the 3rd day in San Francisco, I discovered someone had captured a photo of me leaving his room at dawn. We didn't speak much after that night. We didn't need to. Silence between 2 people who've shared a bed has its own language, and I understood it well. The next morning, I left Thomas's room at 5:45 a.m. I moved quietly down the hallway, watching every corner like a ghost. But someone had seen me. I didn't know who. Not until I checked my company inbox later that day. An anonymous email. No subject. Just one photo, me, stepping out of room 1806, hair in a messy bun, holding my high heels. I was glancing over my shoulder, right as the camera clicked. I froze. Cold sweat trickled down my spine. I looked around the conference room. Who sent this? Who was watching me? My heart was pounding, but I sat through the meeting like nothing had happened. That's when I realized, this wasn't just a secret between Thomas and me anymore. Someone was watching. Someone knew. After the meeting, I slipped out and called him. Someone took a photo, I whispered. There was a pause. Then his voice came through, low and sharp. I suspected it. Someone doesn't want us near each other. I wanted to ask, who? Why? But he hung up. That night, he didn't come. I sat alone in the hotel room, watching city lights flicker like warnings. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. And then, I got a call from an unknown number. Ms. Laura? I suggest you keep your distance from Thomas. Before things get worse. A calm male voice, cold and deliberate, like a hitman. I froze. Someone was playing a bigger game than I'd ever imagined. I thought this was just a secret affair. But the deeper I went, the more I realized, I had stepped into something far bigger than desire. After that chilling phone call, I couldn't sleep. I called Thomas over and over, but all I got were busy tones or voicemail. It felt like falling from the sky without a parachute. The next morning, I went to Lee and Brooks' local office, Thomas's company. I needed to see him. I needed answers. But the receptionist looked at me coldly and said, Thomas McAllister is on leave. He took an indefinite personal absence as of yesterday. My heart dropped. He disappeared. No text. No goodbye. No trace. I started digging. I returned to the Marriott, the hotel where we stayed, and asked the front desk about room 1806. They told me the guest checked out in the middle of the night. No payment record. No credit card on file. He vanished like he never existed. I felt panic rise, not just from losing him, but from not knowing what I was caught in. 3 days later, a brown envelope with no name arrived at my apartment. Inside was a USB drive. I plugged it into my laptop. A video popped up, hallway security footage. There I was, leaving room 1806. Then, another clip. Thomas, arguing heatedly with a man in a gray suit. The man's face was blurred. But his voice was crystal clear. If you keep seeing her, you know what the consequences will be. The video ended abruptly. I was shaking. My hand hovered over the mouse, frozen. Someone wanted me scared. And they were succeeding. I didn't know who was playing this game. But I knew one thing, I couldn't back out now. I didn't know if I had fallen in love with a man, or a ghost. After that video, I felt completely unmoored. Everything I knew about Thomas suddenly felt fragile, unreal. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, just one question looping in my mind. Who are you, really? I decided to find out. I hired a private investigator, Jack Mulligan, a former NYPD officer from the Financial Crimes Division. When I showed him the video, he just shook his head. You shouldn't get deeper into this. But I already had. A week later, Jack called me to meet at a small cafe near the Brooklyn Bridge. He slid a thick folder across the table, along with an old photograph. It was Thomas, but under a different name, Daniel Reese. Inside the folder was a web of companies, anonymous bank accounts, and illegal fund transfers linked to a covert financial ring. Thomas, Daniel, wasn't just a business partner. He was a former federal witness who had vanished off the grid. A hunted man. My chest tightened. I couldn't believe the man who had held me so tenderly, whispered to me in the dark, had once been on a government watch list. I looked at Jack, my voice shaking. Do you know where he is? Jack nodded slowly. He reached out. Wants to see you. But only once, on his terms. I didn't hesitate. I said yes. We met at an abandoned warehouse by the Hudson River. It was raining. I stood there shivering in my coat when he appeared, thinner, wearier, but with the same eyes. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly. I couldn't hold back the tears. "Why did you hide? Why did you disappear?" He stepped closer, placed his hand on my shoulder, his voice rough. "To protect you. The people watching you, they weren't bluffing. They will act." I looked at him, not as Thomas, not as Daniel, but simply as the man I had fallen for, standing in the storm, on the edge of right and wrong. And I had to choose. Stay, and become part of that darkness. Or walk away, and lose him forever. When I thought I had uncovered the truth, it turned out I was the final pawn in a game that had been rigged from the very beginning. I stood in the rain, in his arms, listening to the storm merge with my racing heartbeat. My mind was blank, except for one truth: I couldn't walk away from him. "I'll go with you," I said. "I know that if I go back, my life will never be the same." He looked at me, eyes heavy with sorrow and warmth. He nodded, subtle, but certain. 3 days later, I quit my job at Whitestone. I erased all my online presence. Bought a burner phone, packed a few clothes. And I disappeared with him, as if I'd never existed. We moved from state to state. Never staying more than 3 days. Living on cash, using fake names. He taught me how to wipe traffic camera footage, how to spot a tail. I learned it all. And though I was sinking deeper, I'd never felt more alive. But 6 months later, at a small house in Oregon, it all fell apart. It was 3 a.m. I woke to the sound of a car pulling up. Footsteps. Flashlights sweeping the windows. I turned to the bed, but Thomas was gone. I ran downstairs. The back door was wide open. No trace. No note. And then I saw a small box on the table. Inside, a phone and a memory card. I played the video. It showed me, sitting with Jack Mulligan, the private investigator. In the clip, I handed him an envelope. He said, "The plan's on track. Are you sure you want to go this far?" I looked into my own eyes in that video. Cold. Calculated. I collapsed to the floor. I had forgotten who I was. I wasn't the victim. I was the one sent to find him. I was the planted pawn. Meant to lure him out. I fell in love. But I also led him straight into the trap. And as the memories flooded back, a bullet shattered the window. I rolled away, blood trickled down my cheek. As darkness took me, I saw a face through the broken glass. It was Thomas. But this time, he held a gun. And in his eyes, there was no love. Only betrayal.